Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. This video is part of my new Canvas course, which is paid, but I want to also provide you some free content of that. This is a very basic video, but it should give you a rough understanding of what a canvas is, when you could need it, and yeah, just some basics, and you can see how the videos are like in this course. As I said, this is a very basic video. If you want to learn much more advanced stuff with Canvas, like how to make such a weight picker here, for example, a custom weight picker, or this custom gender picker, or just a tic-tac-toe game. If you want to learn stuff like that and a lot more, then check down the link below till Sunday. So when this video comes online till tomorrow, you can still get 20% off of all my courses, including the new Canvas one. Then the prices will rise again, and there's also no plan to decrease that and give a discount in near future. So if you want to get my courses for a cheaper price, and especially the new one, then check down the link below, and till tomorrow you can still do that. And now enjoy the video. Alright, welcome to the first coding part of this course. Now that you roughly know what a canvas is, when you need it, and how it works, and also how the coordinate system of it works, we can actually start learning how to simply draw some very basic shapes like rectangles, circles, ovals, and some more. You will see these all in this video. So as a little recap, a canvas is just an area we can draw things on. And in this video, we will just draw shapes and give these colors, give these contours or stuff like that. In Jetpack Compose, we have different ways, two different ways essentially, to create an area we can draw on, to create a canvas. The first option is the very obvious one, which is just using the canvas composable. So let's just make that our own composable here. This is just an empty compose project. And by the way, you will also find the source code down here. I'm not sure yet if I will just make this a gist, because we will just have a single composable for most videos, or if this will be a separate repository, but you will find this down here, whatever it is. So let's have this composable here that we can just call my canvas. And in here we will then use this canvas composable, and that will give us the option to pass a modifier. And for canvases, we need to pass a modifier, because obviously a canvas, well, it's an area we want to draw on, and that area needs to have some kind of size. So what I will do is I will attach a modifier here, the compose one, and I will say, let's just, not like this, let's just give this a little bit of padding, like 20 dp, we import dp here, and then we give this a size of, let's say, 300 dp. So our actual area is a square that is 300 dp wide and high, and just giving it a little bit of padding so it doesn't start at the very top left corner of our screen. I'm just doing that because that helps you to understand how this canvas coordinate system works, because that is in the end a local coordinate system, so it doesn't take the top left corner of our screen, instead the top left corner of this canvas. But you will see how this works. Let's format this a little bit. Or not. Let's do it like this. And then we can simply open a lambda block here, and you can see it gives us a draw scope. And the draw scope is something we only have on a canvas, and this gives us access to functions to actually draw on a canvas. So if we just write this dot, you can see we have functions to draw a line, draw an oval, an arc, a circle, a rectangle, and so much more. And in this video we will go through the most important ones of these and which options you have with these. But as I said, we not only have this option to define a canvas, of making that its own composable, we also have another option that we can choose. I will show you that up here, and that is by simply choosing a box. You can choose anything you like, because what we can do is we can simply create a canvas using a modifier. So if we apply modifier to this box, and let's say we want to fill the maximum size, and then we can say that draw behind. So this draw behind function that we can apply to any composable, because it's a modifier, also gives us this draw scope. And well, what does this function do? we can as well just access these draw functions in here, and it will draw all of that stuff behind the actual composable. So behind this box, in this case, behind whatever composable you use. So when should you use which version here? If you really want to have an area to draw on and the only purpose of that area is to draw on, then I will always use this canvas. This is much more readable, and you can decide if this is actually on top of other things, other composables, or below them. But if you have a composable that actually has some content and some other configuration, and you just want to draw some specific shapes or stuff like that behind the composable, then you can just do that with a modifier, and you basically don't need this extra canvas composable in that case. So yeah, you can just play around with that. I won't use this way of doing it here. I think we will use that later in this course, but for this video I will just show you this here in a canvas. But anything we write in here, you can also write in here. So removing this, and let's jump right into it. Two important parameters this draw scope also gives us is, on the one hand, the center. We can press Ctrl Q here to get more info about that. You can see that is of type offset. And an offset is in the end just a coordinate. So with an offset we can pass an X and a Y value to define a specific position on the screen. And yeah, this center obviously refers to the center of this canvas, not to the center of the screen, instead to the center of this canvas. And that is just very often very useful because it helps us to draw things on our screen. Another parameter this draw scope gives us that is very helpful is size. You can see that's not an offset, that is of type size, and well, it just contains the width and the height. It will give us the measurements of our canvas, of the bounding box. So in this case it would be 300 dp times 300 dp. And that's also just very helpful to simply make some calculations with coordinates. But let's actually start to draw some simple shapes. Starting with the probably most easy one is a simple rectangle. And what I want to do is I just want to paint the background of our canvas in black, so we actually see how big our canvas is. We can do that with a simple rectangle, so we say draw rect. And here we can define a bunch of parameters. We can give it a color, for example, of color.black. So we draw a black rectangle. Then for rectangles we need to define the top left corner of that. You can see that is in form of an offset. And by default it's set to offset at 0, so just x coordinate 0, y coordinate 0. And from there on we can define a size that gives our rectangle a width and a height. We want to do this because we obviously want to draw this rectangle at position 0, 0, because it should fill our whole area. And to define a size here, we can simply set this to size. So this size is the size of our canvas, and yeah, it should be the same size as our rectangle. So yeah, let's take that my canvas and put it in set content. Launch our app and just see how that looks like now. And you can see we just get a black square. If we take a look here, this is because of our padding, so our canvas is moved a little bit more into our actual screen, and the size is 300 dp times 300 dp. So this is now our canvas, the black box, and the coordinate system starts in the top left corner. So it doesn't start here in our screen's corner, it starts in the corner of the canvas. And from here we can, the x-axis increases here and the y-axis increases here. So let's actually draw a rectangle inside of this box, maybe just the contours of a rectangle now. So let's go down here and we say draw rect, another one. Give this maybe a color of red. And now the top left is not 0 anymore, instead we can define our custom offset, just defining x and y. Let's say 100 and 100. We can define a size. Let's set this to a size of, let's say also 100f times 100f, so a square. And well, this would simply draw our rectangle with the color red filled. But if we just want to draw the contour, then we can do something. We can apply something called a draw style. You can also see you can play around with the alpha value, so transparency, color filter, blend mode. We will get to this later. I want to apply a style now. And you can see by default it is set to fill. So by default shapes are filled in Jetpack Compose. We have another option which is called stroke. So we only draw the stroke of the rectangle in this case. So let's apply that. Style is equal to stroke. And here we have a bunch of options for that stroke. We can define width, so how wide the stroke should be. And that should, for example, be 5F. And by the way, that is important to know. All these values that we have here are pixel values. Those are not DP values. So in case you have DP values, then you can simply convert these. If you want this stroke to be 5 DP wide, you can simply do something like 5.dp dot 2 pixel. That will make it 5 dp wide, but because the stroke function wants us to pass pixel values, we need to convert these dp values to pixel. Let's maybe make it 3 dp, because that is else already quite thick. We have some more options for the stroke. We will actually get to these later, so what these mean. I think I will talk about that more in the paths part of this course, because there we can better see what these options actually do. For now, let's just start our app again. Take a look here. And you can see there is our rectangle that is just drawn with a red stroke. So we set our draw style to stroke, so Jetpack Compose will only draw the stroke and not the fill. Okay, so let's get back here and let's draw a circle. So we say draw circle, and this gives us similar options again, a little bit different. Of course, the circle has a radius and not some other measurements. And let's say we want to give this circle a gradient. If you want to choose a gradient, we don't say color is equal to something. Instead, we need to pass a so-called brush. So we can say brush dot, let's say radial gradient, because we have a circle. And here we can then define our different colors in form of a list. So we obviously need to pass at least 2 colors here to make that a gradient. Let's say we want to make that a gradient from red to yellow. So we pass these 2 colors, and you can obviously pass more, and these will also be included in the gradient. Because it's a radial gradient, that one also needs a center, so where should it start? By default it's unspecified. That is not what we want. We want to set the center to the center of our canvas. So that will also be the place where we draw our circle. We define that right afterwards, but we also want to define the radius for this gradient and setting it to, let's say, 100 pixels. That's it for the color. Let's set the radius for the circle. You also need that. And set it, for example, to 100 pixels again. So the gradient and the circle have the same radius. And we can define the position of the circle by using center is equal to center, which is already the default, as you can see, so we don't need this. So if we now relaunch the app, then we can see how that looks like. And you can see there's our circle with our radial gradient, which looks quite cool. And obviously you can modify all of these values that we choose here for positions, for sizes, for radius, for the width of a stroke, and simply animate these by simply swapping these out with a corresponding animation state. But we will get to this later in this course to actually make some cool animations. Let's get to our next shape, which is an arc. So if you don't know what an arc is, that is basically a pie, a part of a pie. So the typical pie charts. So we want to say draw arc, give this a color again, and you can give all of these shapes also gradients, obviously. But for simplicity, I will choose a color here of green, for example. We need to define a start angle, so where the part of our arc actually starts, because it's a part of a pie. I will set this to 0f, and the sweep angle is from the start angle for how many degrees we want to draw the arc, basically. So sweep angle, let's set it to 270f. So we draw 3/4 of a circle. Then we have the option to say use center. I will first of all show you what happens if we set this to true, and then explain that. We need to define the top left, similar to the rectangle. I'll choose an offset again of 100F and 500F. And we can give it a size of, let's say, 200 pixels times 200 pixels. And then let's launch this. And as you can see, that looks a little bit like Pac-Man. So the start angle would be the 0 here, so 0 degrees is on top here. And then the sweep angle is 270 degrees. So we go 270 degrees from here and until here, we draw our arc. Now what use center does is, well, we use the center. We connect these two ends of the arc with the center of the circle to make it actually look like a pie chart. If we change this to false and relaunch the app, you can see that now these ends are not connected with the center and instead with themselves. You might wonder, why would this be useful? This can, for example, be useful if we don't fill the shape and instead just set the draw style to stroke. So let's do that. Style is stroke. And we set the width to, let's say, 3dp again, 2 pixels. And now, if we take a look back here, we can see that looks kind of like a progress bar, circular one. So that would be one use case of an arc. Of course, in this case, you would need to animate the sweep angle. So it could start from 0 and animate to 360. So the arc is drawn from here to here, just a full rotation. Next up, I want to show you how to draw ovals. So draw oval, it's very similar to a circle. So we say color is equal to color, for example, magenta. Here we need to define top left. That's not the case for circles because an oval obviously doesn't have a consistent radius. So the top left will be an offset of, let's say, 500 and 100. And for the size, we can choose something here, for example, 200 and 300. And I think you guess how that will look like. If we take a look here, well, it's just an oval, obviously. One more shape I want to show you here is actually not a real shape, it's just a line. We often need to draw lines, also in this course for some practical projects we will do here. We can do this just with draw a line. Give that a color of color.cyan, for example. Define the start coordinate of that line, which is an offset. Let's say 300F and 700F. We need to define the end value, the end offset, 700 times 700F. And a line obviously needs a width, so the stroke width will be 5dp.2 pixels. And then guess what happens if we launch this? There is our line. So that was it for the very basics about Canvas. Of course, these shapes themselves, like we drew them here, don't have any real world significance. So this app doesn't do anything, obviously. But in this course, don't worry, you will learn how you can make use of these to actually draw really cool looking things that will pimp your app to the maximum. In the next video, that will be a theoretical video again, I will talk a little bit about the sine, cosine, and tangent and the polar coordinates. So that is a mathematical concept that we will need all the time when working with canvases. So in case you don't know about these or you just want to refresh your knowledge from school, then don't skip this video. It's not that difficult. There is quite a bit of math involved, but the math that is involved is usually not so hard.